नमस्कार, आप देख रहे हैं न्यूज 24। मैं हूं मानक गुप्ता और मेरे साथ आप अपनी स्क्रीन पर देख रहे हैं भारत में इजराइल के राजदूत रूवेन अजार को। आई हैव विद मी इन स्टूडियो Israel's ambassador to India, Ruven Azar. Welcome to News 24 Studios.
It's always a pleasure to
How
be
are you
here.
doing, Ambassador?
Very good, thank you very much.
Okay. Can you read the text behind us? Do you read a little bit of Hindi?
Yeah. Israel Rajdut.
Yes.
Exclusive.
Yes, that's you.
That's me.
Israeli
Thank you.
ambassador exclusive.
Thank you very much.
What we have written after that is more important. Let it just come on the screen. Here it is.
Kab
Kab rukega yudh.
Yudh.
When will the war stop, Ambassador?
Well, I think we've all seen yesterday President Trump announcing a negotiation that is going on. And this negotiation concentrates around 14 or 15 points that include all the points that we care about: the removal of the fissile material out of Iran, the zero enrichment on Iranian soil, the curbing of the ballistic missile threat, and stopping the support of Iran, of the Iranian regime to the proxies. All of these things are essential parts of what a good agreement could look like. We want.
You say essential. You
Yes,
say essential.
absolutely.
Without that, there's no ceasefire, no agreement.
Well,
correct?
I think that in the first place, the United States has put these conditions, and they were trying to promote them before the war. Unfortunately, after decades of diplomacy, the Iranian regime did not cooperate. Now, finally, after they said that they are not going to negotiate with the United States, they are coming to the table. That's, I think, a good sign.
Is that your knowledge, Ambassador, that
Well,
they're coming to the table? Because all their statements reflect and say clearly that we are not talking to the United States of America.
It's kind of the...
They are negotiating with themselves. That's what they say.
I think that we have enough signals now coming directly from the Americans, whom we trust, that this is indeed going on. Of course, that this negotiation could end the war very fast if the Iranian regime comes to terms with the conditions that are set. There are also good conditions for the future of the Iranian people there.
Okay, but
complete removal of sanctions and other things that would allow the Iranian people to embrace the future in a much more positive way, free of international pressures. Look, this area of the Middle East could look very well if the Iranian regime renounces this quest to destroy the state of Israel and to have this regional hegemony through terror. Okay. If they renounce that, I think that the path for peace is very clear.
Okay, so is that your condition, the topmost condition, that Iran should clearly say that we are not against the survival of Israeli people?
They shouldn't only say that. I think we need the proof that they are going to commit to the conditions put in the American plan. I think that if these conditions are met and we see a true path to achieve these commitments and implement them on the ground, then I think we are on a good path for stability in our region.
Okay, why is Israel not part of the negotiations which are happening in Pakistan or elsewhere? Why is Israel not participating in those talks?
People, I think, haven't realized that throughout the last 47 years, the Iranian Ayatollah regime, this theocratic, fanatic regime, has refrained from recognizing the state of Israel, and refrained from directly engaging with Israel in diplomacy. So because of that, we have the Americans, the US, that is actually leading the way. We are, as you know, working on a joint operation, and the conclusion of this operation either will be through diplomacy and this agreement I just mentioned, or it will be, if diplomacy fails, we will just continue until we fulfill our military goals, as we stated at the outset: the removal of the existential threats, the nuclear, the ballistic missile, and of course, debilitating the regime to the extent that the Iranian people will be able, if they so choose, to embrace the future and adopt a more moderate and sensible way of policy.
Okay. Is Pakistan leading the mediation efforts? What is your knowledge? What is your understanding? We hear the American Vice President J.D. Vance is already in Pakistan. There are several reports. Well, are you okay with Pakistan leading the mediation efforts?
Well, I don't think it's the right characterization of the situation, Manak. I think that the situation at this point is that the United States is leading this negotiation, and they are facilitating assistance from different countries. In this case, they chose Pakistan for their own reasons. What Israel is concentrating in is in achieving the goals, in substance. At the end of the day, if you remember a few months back when we did the Gaza deal and Israel adopted the 20-point plan of President Trump, this was achieved after countries that also were pretty negative to us, Qatar, which is a supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood, and also Turkey, actually helped the United States to put pressure on Hamas to achieve the deal, to accept the deal. So sometimes countries that play a negative role can also play a positive role if the United States manages to engage them. So at the end of the day, we have to concentrate
on the result, on the outcome.
In the outcome,
on the
the goals that we have determined at the outset.
Why is India not leading or participating in the mediation efforts? Or am I wrong? Or you think, or you know, or you believe that the Indians are also a part of the negotiations?
Well, I think that India is playing a very important role. Sometimes it's not seen because India is not directly involved in this case in the negotiations. But what we are seeing very clearly is that India has a stake here because there are 10 million Indians that are living in the Gulf, because India has a lot to offer to West Asia when it comes to economic opportunity. And I think that once we achieve the removal of these existential threats that are looming not only on us, but also on the entire region of West Asia, the potential that comes from the Indian role will be completely untapped. Because, as you know, India has signed international trade agreements with the main blocks of trade, and we are going to see in the future trillions of dollars of merchandise that will move east-west, and this thanks to the India dynamic, thanks to the impetus of this country, thanks to the fact that India is the fastest economy, developing economy in the world today.
Yes. I don't believe, Ambassador, that the United States is negotiating with Iran the terms, the 15-point formula, which is viral on social media, and Israel is not part of those discussions directly or indirectly. I believe that the Israelis are an important part of the negotiations.
Absolutely, because we are in sync with the United States. All these things are being done in consultations between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. They are in constant contact, and also their teams are in constant contact. So, look, this is a joint operation that we did with the United States, unlike any operation we did in the past. This is the first time that the CENTCOM, the US military, and the Israel Defense Forces are working together over the skies of the Middle East. So this is very important. We are partners. We are partners in the military action, but we are also partners in diplomacy.
So you believe that the United States would not agree on a unilateral ceasefire until and unless you also say, yes, okay, we are ready?
Look, this is a partnership. It's not about conditions. We are not in a situation that we have to put conditions to the United States. We are together in this. We are doing this together.
Yeah, but they agreed for a back channel discussion. You did not.
What do you mean?
Isn't this true?
But the back channel is something that is very important if you want to have diplomacy. That's no...
Right. So you also stand for diplomacy at this hour.
If a back channel is used in order not to achieve the goals that we want, we would be against it. But if it concurs with the goals that we want, why should we object it?
But has United States achieved its goals? What are their goals? You've clearly spelled out your goals. What is America's goals? What are America's goals?
I think that both the Americans and Israel have stated very clearly what the goals are. And we're going to stick to the goals. And we'll see. If diplomacy works, then we're going to have a ceasefire sooner than later. And we're going to have a situation in which we can restore peace very soon. If the Iranian regime will not cooperate with this plan, then both us and the United States are building the capabilities to continue this military effort.
Right. Are you ready for a ceasefire?
We are ready for both.
Both?
Yes.
Whatever works out, whatever comes out of the back channel talks.
Absolutely.
All right. Ambassador, is Israel winning this war? Leave diplomacy aside for a moment. Are you winning or just surviving this war?
No, I think that we are on the winning side because we have managed to hurt in a very, very devastating way the threats that were emanating from this regime when it comes to military capabilities. You know, people probably don't know that the Air Force of Israel and the Air Force of the United States are completely controlling the skies of Iran right now and are pounding time and again the military industry of Iran, the missile capability of Iran, the top leadership of Iran, the space program of Iran that was actually focusing on building intercontinental ballistic missiles, the nuclear capabilities of Iran. So all these things are very evident. It is right that the regime still maintains a residual capability to continue firing missiles, but
not only missiles, they're firing drones, they're firing,
yeah, the drones
they're targeting Diego Garcia 4,000 kilometers away.
Well, first of all, the drones...
Why do you say residual capacity?
Why? I'll tell you why.
They're still targeting Israel and the Gulf countries left, right and center, aren't they?
I will explain.
Yeah.
We are saying this residual capacity for several reasons. First of all, their drones are not really threatening Israel. We are neutralizing all the drones that are being fired from Iran. The second, when it comes to ballistic missiles, their capability to fire at Israel has actually deteriorated from about 200 per day at the beginning of this confrontation to about 10 to 15. Okay, so it's a very dramatic
reduction.
Drop.
Yeah, drop.
Third, Israel is intercepting about 90% of the missiles. It means that still you have some missiles that are falling. It means that each time that they fire a missile, people have to run to shelters because we don't know whether the missiles will be intercepted or not. But when you compare the damage that was caused to Israeli buildings, for example, in this confrontation compared to the confrontation back in June, it's about 10 to 15%. So actually, the capability of the regime to throwing havoc, they are trying to project as if Israel is in flames, but this is not the case. It's not the case. Of course, you cannot underestimate or understate the fact that we had 20 Israelis that were killed. Unfortunately, yes. We had hundreds of wounded. We have damage to about a few thousand flats.
They're targeting Dimona.
Okay, they are targeting many things. They are not hit. It's not necessarily hitting. Okay,
right.
So at the end of the day, the level of destruction of the entire capability of the regime, including more than 120 ships, including their entire air force, their entire industrial complex, all of that is destroyed, and I think is going to get this regime debilitated substantially, not only for now, but for the forthcoming.
So that's how you define victory in this war, that you've dropped their military capabilities by 70, 80, 90%. Is that victory for you?
Absolutely,
Ambassador?
And we hope, and look, we have to understand this. Until the 7th of October, Iran was completely immune from Israeli attack because they had all these proxies around Iran, Hezbollah with 150,000 rockets and 15,000 commandos that were ready to invade Israel, Hamas with tens of thousands of rockets and commandos that were threatening to invade Israel, with the capabilities of the Houthis, with the Iraqi militias, with the Assad regime that was supporting them. And the Assad army was one of the biggest conventional armies in the Middle East. So we peeled off layer by layer the capabilities of Hamas, of Hezbollah, of the Assad regime that was toppled, of the Houthis, and of Iran itself. So this is a huge victory. It took us 2 years and a half to reach this point.
But are you not changing the goalposts now, Ambassador?
Absolutely
because United States and Israel both clearly said in the media and otherwise that their aim was to end Iran's nuclear program, end their missile program, and a regime change. Nothing has happened. None of that has happened.
No.
How's that a victory?
Second. First of all, the first two goals that you mentioned have happened because we took back for years their capability to produce nuclear weapons. Because not only that the enrichment facilities were hit, also the conversion facilities were hit. Also, many elements of the military side of the program were hit. So they were a few weeks away of the capability of producing a nuclear arsenal, and now we took them back years. Okay.
How many years?
We don't know, but several years. Number one. Number two, when it comes to their ballistic missile capability, we destroyed the entire ballistic missile industry. Okay, so they were capable of producing several hundred ballistic missiles per month. They cannot do it anymore. Okay, so these goals are being met. Now, regarding the regime change, what we said is not that we are going to change the regime. We said that we're going to debilitate the regime to the extent that the people of Iran, if they choose so, they will be able to revolt against this regime that has been oppressing them for so many years. So now, the question is whether, in addition to our military victory, we can also achieve a diplomatic outcome. Okay? And this is the negotiations are about the diplomatic outcome, because I think that it is not in the interest of the Iranian people to continue this situation of war. I think that
so you don't want a regime change anymore.
Iran, I didn't say that. I think that
you still want that.
I think that it is the right of the Iranian people to choose their future, and the regime that has been ruling them for the last 47 years have devastated their country. Okay, and it's in the interest of Israel.
Who would you like to see in power in Iran?
It's not a matter of whom. It's the matter of the character of the regime. Okay, if you have a situation in which you have a regime that, instead of developing the economy of the country, is concentrated in constant war against Israel and other neighbors, that is not conducive for the future of the region. But if this regime changes course, or whoever comes changes course and uses the amazing amount of resources that this country has, that Iran has,
so isn't that
in order to build a country instead of destroying it, then that would be an ideal thing. We hope that diplomacy works.
Isn't that a climb down, Ambassador? Because you wanted a regime change. Now you want the same regime to change its ways.
We said it very clearly. We want to see a change in Iran, whether it's a change of the regime or the change in the regime. Okay. What we said at the outset is not that we are going to invade Iran and impose our own will. We said that we are going to debilitate this regime, and guess what? This is exactly what is happening.
Okay.
Because and I want to remind you that when this confrontation started, the Iranians were not engaging in negotiations. Now, despite the fact that we don't have a ceasefire, they are negotiating.
Well, the talks were already happening, Ambassador, weren't they?
They were happening before the war.
Yes, but 2 days before the war.
But these negotiations were futile because the regime was refusing to accept the terms that they are discussing now. You see? So we have changed the position of the regime.
They don't officially say that. They're still saying that we don't agree to any of the terms. We're not even talking to the United States.
Okay, so if you choose, you can believe them.
All right. Okay. A very serious question, Ambassador.
Yeah.
If Iran crosses the red line in this war, is Israel prepared for a full-scale retaliation? If Iran crosses the red line.
Which red line?
You know what I mean?
They already shot at us whatever they have.
What if they target your nuclear installations and succeed?
They already did that.
And succeed. What if they succeed?
Well, look, I'm not going to get into scenarios that I don't know if they are going to happen or not.
But that's a worry all around the world, Ambassador.
Look, the Iranians,
is the region close to a nuclear conflict?
Well,
everyone is worried.
We were for sure would approach a nuclear conflict if this regime would have been allowed to build a nuclear arsenal. Because what is the problem here? There are different countries in the world that have nuclear capabilities. But there is no regime in the world that has this fanatic, theocratic, radical agenda of destroying other countries.
Ambassador, can you assure the world that this war will not go nuclear?
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
It will not go nuclear?
No.
Israel will not use a nuclear bomb against Iran?
Israel will never be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East.
Does Israel have nuclear weapons?
Israel will never be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons into the Middle East.
My question is different. Does Israel have nuclear weapons?
And my answer is that Israel will not be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons into the Middle East.
Does Iran have nuclear weapons, Ambassador?
No, because we repeated them.
How close were they to having a nuclear
Very
bomb?
close. Back in June, before we attacked them in Operation Rising Lion, they were very close because they took a decision to break out to a nuclear arsenal. And they were actually working on a device that they would put on a missile that would allow them actually to launch a nuclear bomb. And that's why we had no choice at that time but to take action. We took it unilaterally without the United States. They only came at the end with this Operation Midnight Hammer that bombed in a very limited way some of the facilities. But now we did this because we found out that the Iranian regime was digging itself very deep into the mountain to make these capabilities, both nuclear and ballistic, immune from attack from Israel or the United States. So we took action again.
Okay, so many Iranians say that Israel can have a nuclear weapon. So many other countries can have a nuclear weapon. Why can't we have a nuclear weapon? Many Iranians believe that.
The challenge is that when you have a regime that has sworn to destroy another state, we didn't invent that. They were stating that. They had a square in Tehran that actually was counting down the existence of our state. Okay? So when you have a combination in every security situation, you analyze the threat when you look at capabilities and you look at intentions. Unfortunately, the intentions of this regime was to annihilate the state of Israel. And we had no choice. We had to take it seriously.
So it was a preemptive strike.
Absolutely.
That's why you started the war, because they were close to targeting you.
They were close to getting immunity from our capability to preempt them from from having a nuclear arsenal and an unlimited production of ballistic missiles.
Did you miscalculate Iran's capabilities, Ambassador?
No.
Everyone thought that this war could be over in a couple of days, 3 days, 4 days.
Who?
It's lasted more than 3 weeks. And there's
who
no
thought?
end in sight.
Who thought that it can end in 3 days?
Did you not believe it?
No. We said at the outset this is going to take weeks.
Weeks?
Yes.
So you still stand by that?
Yes.
How many more weeks? It's already been 3
know.
weeks.
Look, we don't know. We have fortunately engaged now in negotiations. I hope this shortens the time of the war. I think that it's a common interest of the entire international community to see, on the one hand, the world free from these terrible threats, but on the other hand, also to have a cessation of hostilities as soon as possible.
All right. Still, do you have a rough idea? How many weeks? How many months?
It depends on the result of the negotiations. I think that we all saw that the Americans are moving actually additional capabilities to the Gulf. We are determined to continue working on the military side. The Prime Minister of Israel has stated that very clearly. So we have to get prepared also for the negative scenario in which the negotiations will fail.
All right. Ambassador, you say you are winning the war. Aren't you losing the narrative war? Not just in the Arab world, but also throughout the world.
No, I don't
No
think
country
so.
is standing by you in this war, Ambassador.
Oh, that's not true.
How many?
Okay. First of
Tell
all,
me.
you
Names.
have seen.
Give me names.
Okay. First of all, you have seen many statements coming not only from the United States but also from European countries that they are actually satisfied from the fact that these threats are being dealt with. We've seen the UN Security Council actually condemning Iran, not
For their
condemning
attacks,
Israel.
yes. For their attacks, yes.
Did you see the UN Security Council condemning Israel? No. Okay, that tells you something. Also, we are hearing in non-official conversations coming from the Gulf, and I think it was a New York Times piece that was published yesterday about how the Saudis were pushing the United States for finishing the job when it comes to the military part. Okay, so
But no country has joined you.
We-
NATO has not joined you. Arab world hasn't joined you. Nobody is joining you in this war.
We happen to.
President Trump has been asking his friends all over the world, please come, help me open the Strait of Hormuz, help me finish this regime. But nobody has come forward. It's just US and Israel. Why?
Well, I think that the US and Israel here are doing the heavy lifting for the rest of the international community. I think that eventually we are seeing now that more countries, including 20 countries that have signed a joint declaration of willing to join an international effort to actually secure navigation in the Straits of Hormuz. That's a very positive sign.
But no country would join you in the war, Ambassador, as far as
No, we haven't seen that. I think that we have the capability to deal with that. And eventually we are doing a service for ourselves, but I think we are doing a service for the world as well. And as I told you, the fact that these terrible threats are going to be removed is going to give opportunity for everybody, including to India.
But you don't feel isolated in the world.
No.
Tell me which countries have supported you in this war.
Look, I'm not going to start counting, but we are getting a lot of positive feedback, both from the Gulf countries, from the United States, from some of the European countries, and we are
does it
pretty
matter?
satisfied.
Does the opinion in the Arab world and the whole world, does it matter to Israel?
It's a great question, because when you deal with existential matters, the most important thing is to survive, to exist, and to thrive. And this is not a popularity contest. First of all, it's a contest that has to do with creating the conditions that will allow our country to continue existing. And of course, opinions matter. We take into account the opinions of especially of our friends. We are in constant contact. Our Prime Minister and also Benjamin Netanyahu and also our Foreign Minister Gideon Saar have been engaging, both with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also with EAM Jai Shankar. We are in close consultations, and we will continue keeping them updated. I think that there are repercussions for everybody as a result of this operation, but I'm very optimistic that eventually we will be able to create a more stable region, a region that is more free from threats of radical forces, and a region that will be able to enjoy opportunities in the future.
Okay, but are you happy with India's stand in this latest war or crisis or whatever you may call it? India hasn't taken sides in this war.
Okay.
What do you believe that the Indian government is neutral, or do you think they are firmly in Israel's camp?
I think that India has been having relations with us and with the Iranians. I think that they still hold some interest with the Iranian regime when it comes to the movement of energy and other things, with the safety of Indian citizens in Iran. And therefore, they are engaged with the Iranian regime. We are not against that. I think that it can be a good conduit to passing the message of resolve that are coming from Israel, that we are dead serious when it comes to defending ourselves. I think
what do you expect from the Indian government as of now?
Well, I think that we are expecting to continue the amazing path we are on when it comes to bilateral cooperation. We had an excellent visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in which we signed 17 agreements on the civilian side and 2 agreements on the security side. We have elevated this relationship into a special strategic partnership.
Yes.
That's very important. And we are going to engage in many more projects that are going to allow both of our nations to defend themselves independently in a much more efficient way.
But would you expect India to take a clearer stand when it comes to this conflict in supporting you? Do you expect Indians to clearly say that we are with Israel?
Look,
is that your expectation?
You can always expect more. We are satisfied with India. I think that India is playing a very conducive role in international relations. And we are very proud to have India as a good friend that identifies also with the fight against terrorism. We are both countries that have suffered from terrorism too much, we can produce together the needs that we need, the capabilities that we need in order to cope with them.
Do you think India is neutral in this war?
Well, I think that you already mentioned that. So
that's India's stand, that we are neutral.
Yeah, I think that.
What is your assessment?
Our assessment is that India is keeping India's interests.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Has Israel asked India for any specific support during this conflict?
Well, we are in contact when it comes to, the situation, the humanitarian situation. We've been in touch when it comes to, the safety of the Indian citizens and workers that are in Israel. We are continue to coordinate all these things, and we are looking forward to the cessation of hostilities in order to re-engage in all the projects, both bilateral and regional, that we are planning.
You must have seen the Indian government not condemning the killing of Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran. Are you happy with that?
I think, look, if you are mentioning that, I think that the number of Muslim countries that have condemned the killing of Khamenei was only 11 or 14 out of 57. I'm not sure I have the number right at this point, but it's a minority. At the end of the day, everybody understands that this so-called supreme leader was directly responsible for the killing of so many innocent lives, that he finally, was made accountable. And this is something that, it's very regrettable that religious leaders abuse their religious position in order to advance agendas that are so ruthless and so lethal and so cruel.
I'll come back to the question. Why do you think India is not supporting you openly in this and saying that we are neutral? Why is that? Do you understand India's compulsions and situation and problems?
Sometimes in international relations, you have to understand that each country have their own interest. Yes. And instead of knocking your head in the wall, trying to ask yourself why this country has this position or the other position, you just have to analyze and understand where interests lie. I think that we have enough of a common interest. We don't need India to come and hold our hand on everything that we do, okay? And therefore, sometimes expectations are overrated. We don't have the expectation. We know how to defend ourselves.
Right.
We know how, India knows how to defend themselves. Each time that they do, they don't come asking for us for permission. We are not doing this. We are behaving exactly the same. We respect each other.
Yes.
We support each other in many ways. And therefore, we respect the Indian interest.
Okay. But do you see Indian people, along with many other countries, struggling for oil and gas? And who do you think is responsible for this? Many Indians and many people all over the world
That's a great question.
That it's the Israelis and the Americans who started the war.
Well, did the Israelis block the Straits of Hormuz?
But you started the war.
People are stating that Iran is their friend. Why Iran should block the Strait of Hormuz for Indian merchandise? There's no reason for that. So their incapability of deal with us, they opted to terrorize the entire world, to hit their friends, to terrorize their friends. I think that makes you think to what extent you want to continue being their friend. Because if each time that they are under pressure, they're going to castigate you, why is that? People have to ask themselves why they have to be subject to punishment of Iran that has nothing to do with them.
Are you in a position to open the Strait of Hormuz along with the United States, and if other countries are...
Israel is not having activity around the Straits of Hormuz. I think that the United States has enough capability, if they choose so, to do so.
But they haven't done that so far.
Well, we've seen that there are amassing capabilities, and I think that it was a right thing to do, and a prudent thing to do, to try to re-engage in diplomacy before they go another step forward.
Yeah,
right?
You think that's the strategy?
I think it's pretty prudent.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
No, the Strait of Hormuz should be opened anyhow,
right?
At any cost.
Well,
but does that mean that putting boots on the ground in Iran is an option? Ambassador?
Well, you have to ask the Americans.
But you're an ally. You're fighting the war along with them.
Yes. I think that we've been very clear from the outset that we are not going to invade Iran. I think that there is a possibility that if the Iranian regime does not cooperate and continues to prolong this war, then there is an option for special units operation to create more leverage against the regime. Probably the United States is trying to use diplomacy before they opt for that option. So we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. Ambassador, what's Israel's stand on Kashmir and the terrorism being exported by Pakistan?
Well, we are against terrorism, you know that, and we have stated that very clearly. And you've seen, following Operation Sindoor, how firm Israel has stood by India, including me personally.
Yeah? And you're still okay with Pakistan leading the mediation efforts? You have no issues with that?
Well, as I said,
a country exporting terrorism is playing peacemaker.
Yeah, I don't think that Pakistan is leading the negotiations.
Who is then?
Ambassador? The United States.
But US is a party in the war. How can they lead the mediation efforts? There has to be a mediator.
No, they are leading the negotiation efforts.
Right, but who's the mediator?
Well, the Americans will choose.
We hear Egypt, we hear Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan. What is your knowledge?
Well, we've seen during the negotiations to release our hostages and finish the war in Gaza, the United States used mediators that we didn't necessarily like the Qataris or the Turks that have been playing a negative role by supporting Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. But eventually, they brought, thanks to their pressure and the pressure the United States put on them, Hamas has agreed to release all the hostages. So sometimes you have in diplomacy to be wise and not to refrain from doing things that would undermine your interest. At this point, the Americans are leading the negotiations in the way they see fit. We trust them. They are coordinated with us. And we are sure that thanks to our military effort that we've been putting jointly and the diplomatic efforts that the United States is putting, that we'll get to a good outcome.
Was this war preventable, Ambassador?
Of course.
Yeah?
Of course. If the Iranians would have come to the table and renounced this terrible ideology of trying to destroy the state of Israel,
all right,
annihilate the state of Israel, of taking over 4 Arab capitals, of instigating terrorism and instability, then the war would have been preventable.
Okay, 2 more questions, Ambassador. Last 2. Do you regret the civilian casualties in this war, especially the schoolgirls who were killed in Iran, in bombing which was carried out either by the United States or Israel.
It is very tragic to see civilian casualties.
Was it the American missile or
well, I don't know.
Israeli?
I don't know. I think that we haven't seen enough evidence coming out to determine what happened there exactly. What I can tell you is that we have a policy of avoiding civilian targets. I think that you can clearly see that out of thousands and thousands of raids that we had over Iran, the rule has been that we target the military targets, and the exception is incidents like you saw, like you mentioned, that are truly regrettable and tragic. And we have the duty to try to minimize them. But unfortunately, this is the result of war. And as much as we try to avoid it, we all in all have the duty to try to avoid war. War is not something that we chose. Unfortunately, this was imposed on us by the Iranian regime. Every bullet and every missile and every terrorist attack that we have faced in the last few decades has been coming from the Iranian regime, either by financing, by training, by direct involvement, by indirect involvement. So this is what led us to this point. And now finally, we have this regime held accountable for the crimes they have committed for so many years. And we hope that this will signal the beginning of a change in our region.
Finally, if you had to give one message to the Indians from this platform today, what would that be?
Well, I think that all in all, when this war is over, you will see a situation in which the threats over the West Asia will be removed, and the Indian people will be able to enjoy the many opportunities that emanate from cooperation between India and the countries of West Asia. I hope this day comes soon, and I'm sure that together we will be able to untap all of them.
All right, Ambassador, thank you so much for coming to the studio. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.